Hello everyone, it's VGTI, and I'm going to do a theory about Metal Gear Solid, which is a series that I haven't covered yet on this channel. And I'm kind of surprised that I haven't, because it's one of my all-time favorite video game series, and I hope that a lot of you guys are fans of it too. If you aren't, you should play these games, because they're awesome, and there are plenty of ways to get into them. But I haven't covered them before because I couldn't really think of very many theories that I wanted to do for it. But one cropped up recently that I saw online, and I thought about it, and the more and more I thought about this theory, the more and more it made a kind of sick, twisted sense to me. So I want to present it to you guys. You guys are probably going to think I'm really crazy when I tell you this theory, but just hear me out, stick with me to the end, and I'll try to explain it as best I can and see what you guys think, because there's a lot of points to it. You know, theories, they tend to get a little crazy sometimes, and that's what you're going to think when you hear this one, but like I said, just hear me out and see what you think. This theory is going to focus on the more recent titles that have been in the Metal Gear Solid series, Ground Zeroes and the upcoming Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. I want to talk about two specific characters. We have our protagonist of these games, Big Boss, and we have the supposed antagonist, Skullface. He's the one who arranged the whole attack on Mother Base at the end of Ground Zeroes. So this theory concerns these two characters specifically. You guys obviously already know what the theory is by the title of the video, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. My theory is that Skullface, at least in the Phantom Pain, is not real. He does not exist. He's not alive. And Big Boss is slowly but surely becoming him. You guys have probably noticed that there are a crap ton of parallels between Skullface and Big Boss. There are just so many similarities, but they're like subtly different. The most obvious being that Skullface is part of a group called XOF, which mirrors FOX, Fox, which is the group that Big Boss was a part of back in the day. And there's also the way that they are introduced. The way Skullface is introduced at the beginning of Ground Zeroes is very similar to how most Metal Gear Solid protagonists are introduced at the very beginning of the game. It seems to imply some sort of connection there. There's also the fact that they come back for revenge after so much time has passed. They come back for revenge against a specific person. They have the same enemy, Zero. I mean, there's multiple things, and I could go on, but these are just some of them, and you guys can probably think of more. Now, when I say Big Boss is becoming Skullface, I don't mean that he is literally becoming him. What I mean, what my theory is that Skullface is psychologically conditioning Big Boss into believing that he is him. Or not really believing that he is him, but more like the lines become blurred between who is who. Skullface is he's warping Big Boss's mind. And not only Big Boss, which I'll get to in a second, but that's what I believe. That's the theory for this whole video, is that he's mentally, psychologically conditioning Big Boss in various ways. And most of these ways primarily involve representing Big Boss in some ways, mirroring him, and basically putting all of these similarities to good use. The whole XOF thing, having a common enemy, and then there's the points that I didn't touch on. If you guys listen to Chico's tapes in Ground Zeroes, you get to hear the torture sessions that Skullface had with Chico and Paz. And not only them, but some random agents as well, undercover agents. And with all three of these people, Chico, Paz, and one of the undercover agents, Skullface quotes words from Big Boss, word for word, he says words that Big Boss has said only to these people. Like, for instance, one of the things he says to Chico, it was a little speech that Big Boss gave to Chico in Peace Walker, and only Chico. How would Skullface know this? Well, that's where it gets interesting. That part is a little harder to explain, and I'm gonna explain Skullface's existence here. Let me just divert here for a second. Skullface is alive in Ground Zeroes, but he is dead in the Phantom Pain. Sometime during Big Boss's coma, in between Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain, Skullface dies. I don't know how yet, of course, but he ends up getting killed off or dying from some unknown cause. And when Big Boss comes to in the Phantom Pain, we've seen from the trailers that Skullface is in the game. We've seen footage of him in multiple MGS5 trailers that show footage from the Phantom Pain. But here's the thing. If you look closely at those trailers, especially at certain cutscenes like the one where Skullface appears at Mother Base, you'll notice that he's not real. He appears out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, and then disappears right after this exact same scene when Big Boss turns. There's multiple things. There's also the fact that in a lot of the cutscenes where you see Big Boss standing with Skullface or riding on a Jeep with Skullface, it's always just them. You don't see other characters around them, and if you do, like the driver in the Jeep, they're not acknowledging them. Just stuff like that. That footage that we see of Skullface in the Phantom Pain is actually just Big Boss hallucinating that Skullface is there. Now, judging by Big Boss's reactions, he seems like he might be trying to ignore it. At least that's what I think. He's trying to fight it, to ignore it, to not admit that he is slowly going crazy, but he is. So we're gonna rewind now and go back to Ground Zeroes. The real Skullface, the one that's alive and well in Ground Zeroes, is actively working to make this insanity happen. He is trying to mentally condition Big Boss into believing that he is becoming Skullface, but it's more of a metaphysical thing rather than a literal thing. You have to pay close attention to what Skullface is doing in Ground Zeroes to really pick up on it. First of all, there's the fact that he is directly quoting things that Big Boss has said during his torture sessions. Now, how Skullface knows this? Well, it's possible that he didn't say those things at all during the torture sessions, but he said other things that were maybe similar, or he knew he was saying things that would make Big Boss tick. It's possible that when Big Boss is listening to these cassette tapes in Ground Zeroes, there are certain parts of the cassette tape audio that he is just hearing, but it's not actually what's playing on the audio. That's the only way that I could think of that this real person, Skullface, would know what Big Boss said. There is also the possibility that the Skullface from Ground Zeroes is not real, but that's a little harder to push. It is a theory that I've been considering, and it's something to think about nonetheless. Either way, quoting Big Boss is just one of the ways that Skullface is starting to condition Big Boss. And it's not only Big Boss, but it's also the people that Skullface tortured. Now, he quoted Big Boss while torturing Paz, but he also quoted him while torturing Chico. Now, this conditioning, this acting like Big Boss, so to speak, did not affect Paz. She didn't have any kind of freak-out reaction upon seeing Big Boss. She recognized him as just the Big Boss that she knows. But Chico, on the other hand, had a completely different reaction in Ground Zeroes. When Big Boss comes to save Chico at the refugee camp, and he opens Chico's cell door, he tells Chico, "It's me," and he shines a flashlight on his face to get him to notice, and Chico just flips out. He freaks out, he starts swatting at Big Boss, telling him to go away, and Big Boss actually has to put him in a stranglehold to get him to be quiet. Chico is just having that much of a freak out upon seeing Big Boss. Now, why would this be? It's because of Skullface's torture. whatever Skullface did, it's clear that he acted like Big Boss somewhat during Chico's torture session, if those quotes that we heard from some of the tapes are to be believed. And this has started to condition Chico as well. Just like it's going to end up conditioning Big Boss, it's also conditioning Chico into believing that Big Boss is a bad person. So when he sees Big Boss, it's almost as if he's seeing Skullface, the guy who tortured him. It's almost like they're becoming one and the same. It's a very psychological thing that Skullface is doing, and why he's trying to do this, I don't know. We'll have to wait till the Phantom Pain comes out to see, but he clearly has a motive behind all of this. There's also the fact that the way Skullface did his torture, he intended for Big Boss to listen to all of this torture from the very start. He knew that Chico's Walkman would be recording the entire thing. You can hear it in one of the tapes. He tells one of his men to make copies of all of Chico's tapes so that Big Boss can hear him. These are the tapes that you find in Ground Zeroes. They're the copies that Skullface had made, specifically so Big Boss could hear them. Now, why do you think that is? If Big Boss listens to all of these tapes, which I believe is the canonical thing here, Big Boss listens to all of the tapes, and with everything that goes on in them and the way Skullface is acting on them, that starts the conditioning to take hold. It starts to affect Big Boss's psyche, even though he doesn't really notice it. It's only after the attack on Mother Base and the 9-year coma that it really starts to settle in. But whatever happens in the Phantom Pain, I'm sure makes it a lot worse. But it's clear that Skullface did this on purpose, for this very reason. So we fast forward to the Phantom Pain, where Skullface is now dead, but he still lives on in Big Boss's mind. Big Boss is hallucinating Skullface throughout the game, and Skullface is probably affecting his psyche even more by the things he's saying to Big Boss whenever he sees him. We always see him talking to Big Boss in the trailers. And it's clear from the trailers, every single one of them, that this is the game where Big Boss finally snaps. He loses it. He starts going insane. We've seen multiple bits of footage of him doing rather insane things, the most notable being killing his own men. Now, there could be an explanation for that. There could be a very good explanation for why he's killing Diamond Dog's soldiers. But the fact is that he's doing it. And then there's the most recent trailer that came out during this past E3 2015 that shows Big Boss walking down a hallway with a logo nearby that says Diamond Dogs, and there's just crap tons of bodies everywhere, blood everywhere. And it's clear that he's done this. And as he's walking down the hallway, that shrapnel horn that's on his head starts growing. This also, I believe, is a psychological effect, something that he is hallucinating. And hallucinations appear that they'll probably play a pretty big part in the Phantom Pain. Ghosts and phantoms in general appear that they'll play a big part in the Phantom Pain. It's in the title, for Pete's sake. And there's also Skullface's title from one of the trailers that says, "A Ghost Without a Past." Do you see all the connections here? It's good to watch the trailers too, every single one of them, and extensively analyze them with this theory in mind. It starts to make a lot more sense that way, but whether it's right or not, we'll just have to see when the Phantom Pain actually comes out. The only other big question is one that we can't answer yet because MGS5 isn't out yet. It's the question of whether the Skullface that we see in Ground Zeroes is real, and whether, if he is real, who is he? What is his connection to Big Boss if he is a real person? How does he know Big Boss? He says that he and Big Boss go way back, but that could mean a lot of things based on if he's real or not. If he's not real, then this theory could be a lot stronger. And heck, it could be even more strong for the theory that he's not real at all in the first place. He doesn't exist in Ground Zeroes, and he doesn't exist in the Phantom Pain. There's a lot of ways you could take this, and whether Skullface is real or not in any capacity is up to you. But we'll just have to see, like I said, when the game comes out.